Thank you. I feel rather green compared to the other speakers being on stage just for the second time in my life. I was last year here for the first time representing Siemens. I'm still working at Siemens, but feel honored to be here in a different role as president of this Virtual Worlds Association. Anne-Bajar already started to explain all the different programs that exist within the European Commission context. Alexandra explained that we need to bring, that what we do here is bringing together several XR communities that exist within Europe. I think there are many XR associations, you also see them represented in the other parts of the program. So why another association? Well, I think it's really important that we start to extend our thinking when it comes to XR beyond XR, right? So, and virtual worlds definitely built on XR, but there is a lot more that comes to it. AI was already mentioned, but there is, I think, a larger ambition level and also a larger impact that we have at the level of virtual worlds compared to just looking at XR in isolation. I think many people already said that we have a high ambition level in Europe and also a reason to be ambitious. The ambition, as we have defined it in the Virtual Worlds Association, is that we want to ensure that we drive industry impact. And we acknowledge that our main role is in the context of Horizon Europe, which is funding of research, typically at TRL levels up to 6. The second is that we believe that probably the first uptake of particularly XR technology is in the education and training domain. We can train stuff that you cannot train in real conditions because it is dangerous, because it is far away, because it is very complex or expensive. Plus, we can reach many more people with high-end technology through virtual worlds contexts. And lastly, very importantly, I think, is the unlimited creativity ambition that we have in Europe. And we play an important role there, and a different role, I think, than the other communities around the globe do. So we're on a mission, and on that mission we need you, but I will come back to you why we actually need you. The mission that we have is to build a positive impact. It is already said now 3 times. We want a European-flavored virtual worlds realization, and that has a truly impact not only on business, but on the entire society as a whole. We feel that we need to further unite communities. There are many associations that try to unite communities and that actually are very effective and successful in uniting communities. Still, there is many that exist in isolation, and that if we are able to bring them together, and I think the Horizon Europe context is a very easy entry point to bring different communities together, we can further grow the impact and drive this European flavor. So the Virtual Worlds Association, represented by myself, and the European Commission, represented by the Executive Vice President Henna Virkkunen, will sign this Memorandum of Understanding. And then we start working. In the Virtual Worlds Association, we try to bring together this Virtual Worlds community. I'm pretty sure rather soon we get to topic groups that can work on the specific topics that this virtual worlds context is being built up with. And altogether, we generate the strategic research and innovation agenda. That agenda is crucial. So this agenda is the core document for the European Commission to decide the European research calls upon. So if you believe that Europe needs to work on something, it needs to be in that agenda first. That's the first step to get into this pipeline of getting a European-funded exercise towards that realization. Another point, what I believe is important and which is maybe less direct in a kind of influence sphere, is that the European Commission obviously drives policies that have a huge impact on virtual worlds. So also that impact on EU policies, I think, is something that we can help channel and where your voice can be heard. One thing that I cannot stress enough is that there will also be entities not being a member of the Virtual Worlds Association that still have a very important voice driving this agenda. And this is possible, right? So it's not only by being a member of the Virtual Worlds Association that you can drive the research agenda. I think beyond the intrinsic interest that I have to make that Virtual Worlds Association very successful, I think there is even a larger interest to ensure that the strategic research and innovation agenda reflects the opinions of the experts that matter. So that can be individuals, that can also go through the relevant associations that you see also in this event. We will find ways to include these opinions directly into the agenda, but also through the topic groups that we will set up. I thought it was good. When I was here last year, the picture of Horizon Europe was for me less clear than for many of us, for many people around me. People that know what Horizon Europe is more or less, but not so specifically. So to position a bit this Virtual Worlds partnership, I put here the list. Anne just mentioned there is about 60 partnerships, 50 existing, 10 new ones. In cluster 4, which is the cluster on digital, industry and space, there is currently this list of partnerships, where the 3 last ones are in this list of 10 new partnerships. The 4 yellow blocks that you see on top are so-called joint undertakings, which are beyond the research stage. So this is much more about bringing industry together, ensuring that research work gets implemented. I think already at this stage, I can say that as a future ambition, we want to get to that stage of a joint undertaking, to get out of that research-only TRL6 leveled research domain into full industrialization at a European level. So for the EU, there's many interests, overcoming fragmentation, ensuring that we have a European representation and not work in isolated countries. Work on competitiveness, even more important than it was about a year ago. We can not only assume that our voice will be heard in the world, but also we need to compete with the other regions. But let me focus on the right side of the slide. So what is in it for you when you would decide to become a member of the Virtual Worlds Association? And the key thing is that you influence this agenda. Not only you have an opportunity to ensure that your text is reflected in that document, but I think moreover, we will organize network events, but also digital platforms to build that community and to ensure that we manage to talk to the people with an opinion and to get to a consolidated opinion on what is important for Europe and how we can contribute to that. In that process, you will identify other potential project partners. So you can start to build consortia when influencing the research agenda even before the calls are out there. And that allows us to build a kind of pipeline from communities, from industries, from academia, bridge those different worlds, identify common interests, push agenda topics, help the European Commission understand where the priorities for Europe lie, and then get in there with a consortium, with a proposal that obviously is a very strong proposal as you have been involved from the beginning, and therefore you have a high winning chance and execute actually on that work. So I think that is the pipeline that the Virtual Worlds Association offers. For us, a second part, and that's obviously a chicken and egg story. This pipeline becomes more successful with more members. So we also just need a lot of members to put weight on the table in these discussions with the European Commission. As I said, we don't do this for the sake of the association, right? I believe that it's important to start looking at virtual worlds not as a technology, and the same applies for XR. I think we have a long history that kind of also works a bit against us today of inventing more and more advanced augmented and virtual reality systems without having the true proof points of what then the added value of that technology is. I think if we are able to build virtual worlds, we are able to break down silos that exist today. And I'm coming from industry, where we see, for example, a lot of different disciplines in a design pipeline or in a manufacturing pipeline with hugely complex supply chains behind these products. If you're able to work on a single digital twin, on a single model, contribute to that model and also use that model throughout the manufacturing stage and even throughout the use phase of that product, we can take away a lot of inefficiencies and ensure a much smoother handover of data and information that is critical for the success of that product. So I think the first thing is in that domain where we can bridge individual disciplines and ensure that these silos no longer exist. The second thing is that there is an opportunity for massive safety and sustainability gains. I already mentioned training of dangerous situations. The sustainability part is, for me, mainly driven by the fact that I can do a lot of scenario-based exploration and see the immediate impacts, see in real time the impact of the scenarios that I have in decision-making and get a picture of the impact on sustainability numbers. There is the collaboration element. And there I think XR plays a crucial role in the virtual world. There is a lot of worlds today where information is being shared among experts, where experts are very comfortable in exchanging and reading that information, but as soon as non-expert people need to become part of that decision-making process, they very easily get lost. People reading numbers, people reading graphs. If we work on strong visualization solutions, also immersive solutions, we can do a collaborative decision-making with people that currently are not part of the decision-making. And lastly, inclusion through democratization of technology. There is a huge group of people currently hardly accessing technology. Technology that is available to experts, the normal people, so to say, that we can give access to technology by building a virtual world. Anne already mentioned or showed shortly the contents of the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda. And what is on top there are the so-called domains. Right now there are 7 different domains in the agenda, which have a huge variety of use cases. Still, they can benefit from the same technology in many different cases. So what we started off with when writing the SRIA is not the technology blocks, nor the socio-economic chapters. What we started off with were these domains and identifying use cases where virtual worlds can make the difference. And it's only after we had these use cases that we started to combine them with the technology that can help them realize. Now, the use cases in these different segments are very different. So I'll show you 4. One example here is an industrial example coming from Siemens, so from my backyard, where we look at a manufacturing process for a battery cell production. So we need to compile a battery pack out of battery cells. We have a robot arm doing that with a gripper that is pretty heavy by itself. And now we start to redesign that gripper, but we don't redesign that gripper in isolation. We do that in the context, in the operating context, in the virtual world that robot actually operates. So with generative engineering, I can do a 3D printed gripper for this specific than the original gripper. But due to the fact that the gripper is lower weight, I can select a smaller robot arm. And if I can select a smaller robot arm, I can put that robot arm closer to the assembly line. And if I can do that, I can even optimize the process further, such that I can not only improve the gripper performance, but actually improve the entire cycle of that manufacturing operation. So it is in this case that due to immersion, by putting things in context, that I can get to a massive weight reduction, not only on that single component, but actually on the entire work process, and with that also reduce the CO2 impact of this maneuver massively. So I think an important example in a sense that this is not XR. There is no XR content, but still it's a very strong example where virtual worlds, I think, bring massive added value. A second domain is the arts and culture. A very different domain from the industry. Still, there is opportunities to leverage technology that can also be leveraged in the industry context. This is an example for a virtual reality museum, and that is driven by the fact that there is a lot of musea in Europe, but about 85% of the art that is available within this museum cannot be seen. So can we find ways to democratize the hidden treasures that we have in our musea through virtual worlds, and allow also people that cannot travel, or people that don't want to travel, or people that are overseas to look at these pieces of art, not just as a picture on my screen, but actually in a much more interactive way than I can even do in a museum. The next example, the domain of security and defense is obviously high on many agendas. It's not so easy to find public, interesting examples of virtual worlds. So the example that you see on the screen has to do with training, which is obviously important, but probably even more important is all the military applications that can lead to very dangerous situations that are therefore hard to design, plan, let alone train. So there is a huge opportunity for virtual worlds also in the military context. And lastly, back to a more peaceful example, the expectation is that very soon hundreds of cities will deploy virtual worlds. And that allows them to plan, to do urban design challenges with much more interaction with the end users. And the example that you see on the left side of the picture is if I do urban design and I can check if people feel comfortable, if they feel safe, I can start to implement measures that potentially increase safety, or that the perceived feeling of safety. For example, by adding much more green into that city landscape. And rather than that I ask in a survey, do you believe that more trees help you feeling safe? We make people actually experience what that is like. So huge opportunities in many different domains. And it is for that reason that we compiled this strategic research and innovation agenda. You can download it freely on our website, but moreover, there is opportunity to also leave comments and help us improve that SRIA. As said, it is built on use cases, and these use cases point to technology needs. The horizontal technology chapters that you see bring the technology to the individual use cases, focusing on hardware and software to build immersive experiences, to work on user interaction topics. How do we interact with the actual user? But we also focus on the tools. There is a strong reliance today on particularly US tools when we build virtual environments. In this chapter, we challenge to identify what are the elements where a more European technology is required. And lastly, very important and also being addressed in the panel after my talk, is the topic of interoperability and standardization. As you can see, there's also two vertical chapters. One is digital twins, assets and people. And I think what I already mentioned in between the lines, I think virtual worlds is much more than XR, and the digital twin is a very critical component in the realization of virtual worlds. So therefore we created this vertical chapter. It has a relationship to all the other technologies, right? To standardization, to authoring tools, to the way we visualize and interact with these models. But the technology is pretty instrumental if we want to realize virtual worlds. And the same applies to applied AI. But again, Michael already highlighted this when he kicked off this morning. The connect in two directions, AI for the sake of building virtual worlds and realizing virtual worlds, and virtual worlds for bringing the data and collecting the data to train the actual AI models is hugely important now. But it's much more than technology. If we want to develop a European-flavored virtual worlds, we need to put a lot of emphasis on socio-economic themes as well. So the Horizon funding calls will definitely go beyond technology, right? There is a lot of research needed in how to build a safe, friendly, also child-friendly virtual world. And for example, a look also at law enforcement. How can you punish the people that misbehave in the virtual context? Lastly, there's a lot of huge technology questions that need to be solved for realizing virtual worlds that actually are beyond the agenda that we put here. I think easy is data governance, data analytics, but also networks, the whole infrastructure that is needed, the domain of optics and photonics. So there is a huge set of other partnerships that already exist that have strategic research and innovation agendas that we will not copy, that we will not try to compete with, but that we reach out to. I want to end with an invitation for collaboration to all of you. So this is a warm invitation for all of you to join us, right? The Virtual Worlds Association is open for members. As a member, you can help us fill this pipeline of designing a research agenda, influencing the European Commission in what the most critical and urgent research calls are about, for building your consortium to actually apply to these consortia, and then execute the actual research. Moreover, there is a longer-term ambition where we see that we need to also play a role in that commercialization of the research work. So it doesn't stop after the Horizon projects that will be executed. Now, with that, I'd like to close this part of the presentation, and I'm, as I'm here today, probably also most parts of tomorrow, so very eager to have conversations about these topics. And I will come back in the panel discussion later on, where potentially also some interaction is possible. Thanks a lot.